The 90s was a golden age of sitcom catchphrases, action blockbusters, and supermodel-mania, but the stars of that era have come a long way since then. One of the most memorable sounds of the 1990s was the high-pitched nasal drone of Steve Urkel on the hit sitcom Family Matters.
Did I do that?
The sitcom was a wave of African-American-centered television, with emerging national treasure Reginald VelJohnson playing the head of the Winslow family. But VelJohnson, and basically everyone else, was upstaged by Jaleel White's dweebtastic icon, whose planned one-episode arc turned into years of television stardom. Written as the nerd of all nerds, Urkel's catchphrases were probably among the most commonly spoken English sentences for a good few years. It was Urkel's world, we just lived in it. Perhaps surprisingly, Jaleel White grew up to be a handsome and confident adult. While his subsequent projects have never matched the all-consuming popularity of Family Matters, he's continued working steadily in the years since, finding particular success as a game show host. White has also continued to speak about the show that made his name, and is often candid about the problems the role caused him. A recent memoir, Growing Up Urkel, revealed that he had felt tension with his adult cast members and suffered damage to his voice after using the Urkel register so much during puberty. Despite these challenges, White usually speaks fondly of his time on the show, but he's not keen to see a reboot anytime soon. One of the original Big Five supermodels was Linda Evangelista, a Canadian-born beauty whose face graced hundreds of magazine covers in the 90s. She also became notorious for a quote given in a Vogue interview that seemed to encapsulate the entitled reputation of her and her peers. Speaking to the publication, she insisted she wouldn't get out of bed for less than $10,000. Recently, Evangelista has made headlines for less glamorous reasons. In 2015 and 2016, she underwent cool sculpting procedures, in which extreme cold is used to spot reduce fat. Unfortunately, she experienced an unusual side effect in which targeted fat cells grew instead of shrank, changing her appearance and, per a lawsuit she filed in 2021, leaving her unable to continue working as a model. While she went through a period of seclusion after the problem initially arose, in recent interviews she seemed more at peace with the changes, instead choosing to focus on friendships and motherhood. Edward Furlong's first credit remains his most impressive. He starred as John Connor in Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
And if you want to shine them on, it's hasta la vista, baby.
Hasta la vista, baby.
The young Furlong joined Arnold Schwarzenegger and Linda Hamilton in a sequel that arguably punched harder than the original, and the budding star seemed destined to shine. While never quite finding the success of his breakout role, Furlong worked throughout his adolescence in film, TV, music videos, and a series of Japanese instant noodle commercials. But it's hard to live up to being cast as the savior of the world at 12 years old. And both Furlong's career and his personal life would ultimately fail to weather the challenges of child stardom. In the early aughts, Furlong began to struggle. He lost the opportunity to reprise his role in Terminator 3 due to his drug use. He was arrested for erratic behavior involving alcohol, and he landed in legal trouble for domestic violence. His troubling behavior continued into the 2010s, with further domestic abuse charges levied against him in 2012 and 2013. Things improved from there, though. Now sober and open about his past troubles with substance abuse, Furlong has begun to work again, starring recently in a couple of horror flicks and a feel-good movie about a horse. Of course, whether audiences will accept a comeback tour after the actor's repeated arrests remains to be seen. Roseanne was one of the iconic TV sitcoms of the 1990s. Living in the profoundly unglamorous town of Lawford, Illinois, the working-class Connor family were far more relatable than all those other sitcom characters, those New Yorkers with their perfect hair and highfalutin careers.
What a beautiful day for a ball game! Let's play two!
The show may have gone off the rails at the end, but when it worked, Roseanne was TV comedy at its best. Sharp but loving, perceptive but rarely maudlin, the show helped make its star, Roseanne Barr, a household name. After Roseanne ended, Barr made forays into film, production, and talk show hosting. She even gave reality television a go, attempting to run a macadamia nut farm in Roseanne's Nuts. But her off-screen behavior gave both fans and studio execs cause for concern, especially her apparently unguarded social media use. In 2018, Barr tweeted a racist comment about an Obama administration official, leading to her firing from the reboot of Roseanne and sparking a number of acrimonious comments about her erstwhile co-workers on the project. Since then, Barr has remade herself as a right-wing media personality, while also returning to her stand-up roots. Pamela Anderson was one of the most prominent sex symbols of the 90s. A star of mega-hit lifeguard drama Baywatch, Anderson also came to hold the record for most covers of Playboy graced by a single model. Anderson's rocky personal life and chronic misfortune made her nearly as popular a subject of gossip as she was on television. The victim of a stolen and semi-illicitly distributed sex tape, a second sex tape scandal, and domestic abuse, she has endured some true personal unhappiness in the public eye. She's been married 5 times, too, with every marriage ending in either annulment or divorce. Luckily, it seems much of that drama is behind her. Today, Anderson remains a celebrity, though she now focuses much of her time and effort on conservation and human and animal rights advocacy. She has also recently released a cookbook, I Love You: Recipes from the Heart, which is dedicated to her sons. Canadian actor Devon Sawa's first big role was in the fondly remembered kids' sports movie Little Giants, which he followed quickly with a memorable turn in Casper opposite Christina Ricci. This early role set the tone for much of Sawa's career, and by the late 90s, he was a bona fide horror heartthrob, starring in Idle Hands and the original Final Destination. Lately, Sawa has been digging into his horror legacy with roles in the new Chucky series and a few horror and suspense films. Notably, though, he received Emmy consideration for his guest spot on the acclaimed Gene Smart dramedy Hacks. He's also reportedly working hard to get everyone reunited for another Little Giants outing. Meanwhile, the proud dad often speaks in interviews about the importance of his children in his adult life, even if they won't be watching his work in Chucky anytime soon. The sitcom Designing Women was a classic of 90s television. Strong female characters, even stronger shoulder pads, and a stellar run of very special episodes on topics such as racism, sexism, and HIV. One of the show's stars was former Miss Florida Delta Burke, who played the vain and eccentric beauty queen Suzanne Sugarbaker.
You're depressed about the big 3-0, aren't you?
No, Julia, I'm not depressed about the big 3-0. I'm depressed about the big 2-9.
Burke left the cast after the hit show's 5th season amid rumors about her behavior on set and tabloid criticism of her weight. The show limped on for another 2 seasons, but without Burke and castmate Gene Smart, audiences soon dropped off. Burke later discussed the depression she had experienced during her time on the show, which manifested in disordered eating and diet pill use. After starring in Women of the House, a short-lived sitcom that saw Suzanne Sugarbaker seated in Congress, Burke stepped away from Hollywood altogether. She occasionally appeared in guest spots but built the rest of her life elsewhere. Burke had married fellow actor Gerald McRaney in 1989. Today, they live together in Central Florida. Okay, so maybe Johnny Depp isn't quite unrecognizable, but he's certainly come a long way since the 1990s. Depp spent much of the 90s building a career any actor would envy. Having been established as one of his generation's most handsome stars in A Nightmare on Elm Street, he soon proved that he was much more than just a pretty face, appearing in cult hits such as John Waters' Crybaby and Tim Burton's Edward Scissorhands. By 1996, he was appearing as himself in films and sitcoms. You know they love you, and they're just asking if you'd like to show up. As time went by, Depp carved out a real niche for himself in Hollywood, playing eccentric lead roles in blockbusters such as Pirates of the Caribbean and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. But Depp's reputation took an enormous hit during his very public separation from and subsequent legal battles with his now ex-wife, actor Amber Heard. While Depp won damages from Heard after a court found her liable for defamation, commentators and observers found his alleged behavior to be unsympathetic at best. His career may go on, but for many fans, Johnny Depp's image will remain stained. If you or someone you know needs help with mental health, contact the Crisis Text Line by texting HOME to 741-741. Call the National Alliance on Mental Illness Helpline at 1-800-950-NAMI 6264 or visit the National Institute of Mental Health website.